And I think there's still a lot of questions about Nancy Pelosi and just exactly where she was on J6. And when I say where she was, like what that really was all about. I think she might actually really be nervous because don't forget, she could have invited any journalist in there. Who did she choose to bring but her daughter, who was a documentary filmmaker, into the whole ordeal during J6. And so we had everything through Nancy's lens, courtesy of her daughter, the documentary filmmaker being key there, right? They had the special music and the special effects because they want to lead you down this path because they have a narrative they're trying to tell. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have a narrative here too, but we don't like jam it filled with special effects and stuff to try and scary times. Oh my gosh, they're going to do this. They're going to go do that. They're coming in on the Capitol. I mean, wow. Did we ever hear about how Nancy decided not to bring in the Capitol Police? No, you don't hear much about that in Alexandra Pelosi's version of this, which they played on a loop on CNN. They kept playing it and playing it and playing. You'd think CNN was in there with her, but nope, that was her daughter. So a little bit of conflict of interest there, on top of which they then decided to hold the January 6 hearings and they brought in ABC News producers. Interesting, right? ABC News producers, because we're going to get to The View. And let me just say the producers are freaking out over there. But I think that maybe Nancy Pelosi is kind of freaking out because, after all, it was her daughter that decided to put all that footage forward, which was a very specific and very biased narrative. Any way you slice it, totally biased. Well, now, you see, we've learned that it wasn't just the American media that shared that bias that Nancy has and her daughter has. I mean, the bias was rampant, right? We listened to James Comey say all his stuff and Brennan, et cetera. I don't need to play that for you again. Heck, you had the former president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, before he died, saying he didn't believe that Trump was a legitimate president because he was put there by the Russians. They tried everything. They had the Russia thing. And then they had the Hunter Biden laptop that was really just Russian misinformation. Oops, along the way to the forum, they also had the J6 thing. Okay, so it's like one thing after another. Actually, no, I got that right. It was J6 that was the third. Oh, and then, you can squeeze in the Wuhan virus that was not really from Wuhan. It was not from the Wuhan lab. They lied over and over and over and over again. And they lied in some ways even about, and I'm not justifying it because I don't think it's appropriate to storm the Capitol. Don't get me wrong. Let's be very careful because somebody's going to misinterpret what I'm saying. But they definitely overblew it. Like, my first question the whole time was, why didn't Nancy Pelosi call in the Capitol Police? Well, the media had their version of it, courtesy of Nancy Pelosi and her daughter Alexandra. And then there was the BBC version of it, right? You saw this one. They're being accused of editing what the president said. They actually waited an entire hour. So I'm going to show you first what they ran, followed by what he really said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down.
Okay, that's what they ran. You understand, that has a pretty significant meaning. It turns out that's not actually what he said. The whole we will fight like hell. That came an hour later into the speech, an hour later. But they stitched it together as though it was real, as though he was encouraging people to do that. This is according to a whistleblower. And I'll tell you, the BBC's got some answering to do about this particular program. They aired it right before the election. Ooh, they must really want that USAID money, huh? Anyway, here's the original.
The Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
You're going to cheer them on. That's very different than we're going to fight, okay? So I'm pointing out only that as you look at Nancy Pelosi's departure, granted, she's quite old and the party's a mess, and I think there's a lot of pressure for her to get out. And just like there was a lot of pressure for Biden to get out. But I think there's other things going on here too. Maybe she figures she's not as much in harm's way if she exits stage left. Maybe she figures less likely that she's going to get indicted like her friend James Comey did.